You're listening to the Agent and the Fan podcast with sports agent Chris Leible and fan Lou Columna.
Welcome, everybody, to the Agent and the Fan podcast. I'm Chris Leible. I'm the agent here with my broadcast partner, Lou Columna. He's the fan. What's up, Lou? How you doing?
I'm good, brother. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm excited about today's show. We have a very special guest joining us, Rick Thurman. He's the chairman of Perfect Game, which is just absolutely killing it right now in the baseball business. And we'll talk more about it with him and kind of, what's going on over there. But Rick is actually an agent himself who, one of the best careers in the whole history of the industry. So it's going to be great to have him on. I've known him for a while. We'll get to that later, but Rick he's a good dude, and he's worked with some really great names. But really, what I really want to get into today is Perfect Game, because we both have kids who are just getting to that point of where they're starting to play more competitive baseball, and Perfect Game is just like the gold standard right now of what's going on in amateur baseball. So it's going to be great to and even beyond, but it's going to be great to just to hear from Rick and get see how he's blowing out of the box with this organization. So, well, here's our guest, Rick Thurman. Rick is the president of Perfect Game, and Rick, you and I go way back, but really, I wanted to talk to you about Perfect Game and all the amazing things you're doing at this company. It's like to me, it's like a snowball rolling downhill. It's growing. It seems like it's growing every day, and the brand is just through the roof.
Thank you. Yeah, the brand is really popping. So as you know, I had a pretty lengthy career in the agent business. Started in '84, yeah, I just, look, when I started in the agent business, agents were really different than probably they are today. You called your agent might be a school teacher, it might be a lawyer, it might be a doctor, it might be an accountant. And when it was that time of year to get your contract negotiated, you'd have whoever was your agent negotiate the contract. And so you might talk to your agent once or twice a year, but that was kind of it. So I had started Beverly Hills Sports Council with my old partner, Dennis Gilbert, back in 1984. And just previous to that, I had played with the Dodger organization and for a couple of years. And when I got drafted to go play with the Dodgers, actually, they used to put all the rookies in Holman Stadium at Vero Beach down the right field line in this big room. It looked like kind of an army barrack, right? It was like Gomer Pyle practically. You had all these beds lined up against the walls with the lockers behind. There might be 40 or 50 guys in this barrack that we were actually hanging out together. And that's where we were doing spring training. And so I was sitting on my bed. It was like middle of March, and it was tax season. So I was filling out my short form tax return. And we were all making $600 a month, And so the guy sitting in the bed next to me goes, "You know how to fill out a tax return?" I'm like, "Yeah." Before you knew it, I had done like 25 guys' tax returns in this army barrack, right? For all the players. So I got labeled kind of as the resident genius because I could do a tax return, right? So the following spring training, the same 25 guys brought in envelopes, shoe boxes of their 1099s and their W-2s, and they threw them on my bed, and I did tax returns again. And that spring, I hurt my shoulder. And I was forced to retire pretty much at an early age. But when I did that, a lot of the guys that I was friends with would always ask me for advice when we were playing, business advice. And so I decided to put together a business plan in sports for representing players. And I took it to who my agent was at the time, which was Dennis Gilbert, who I ended up being partners with. And we put together a plan because we wanted to incorporate somewhat of what they did in the entertainment business into sports, which was we wanted to be the agent, but be really the personal manager, the agent, the business manager, the lawyer, the marketing person, the PR person, and do the accounting and do it all under one roof. In the entertainment business, you're paying probably 40 or 50% of your income before you ever collect a dollar. And we did this. We said, okay, we're going to do all this for 5%. And we actually took the agent business by storm. I mean, we became the biggest agency in baseball within like probably 3 years, representing guys like Danny Tartable, George Brett Saberhagen, Bobby Bonilla, you name it, Barry Bonds. We took the business by storm, and that was the good news. The bad news was that everybody started copying what we were doing, so we created a lot of our own competition. But it still worked out great, and we had a really great run. The company's still in business. I sold the company to one of my old partners in a private equity firm a couple years ago. But it's kind of funny. I just went through my old rosters because I've kept all the rosters of all the clients over the years. And about 6 months ago, I was going through and I added them all up. And we represented during my tenure there over 4,000 players. Wow, which is it's a crazy number of players. Not all of them made it to the big leagues, and not all of them were successful at the big league level. But it was a pretty good sum of money, a good sum of players, I should say. So anyway, over the course of my career, I knew Ben Ford. Ben I represented, and his dad was Jerry Ford, who actually started Perfect Game back in 1995. I think Ben played about 14 years of pro ball. I think he played 3 or 4 years in the big leagues. Yeah. So I was always close with the family. And the funny thing was, this was about 8-9 years ago. I was getting on a plane, and you know, Chris, from being in the business, like you're on a plane every other day, right? Like I used to add up all my plane flights, and I think I averaged like 170 wheels up, wheels down flights a year, which means you're in a different city every other day, right? Yep. And you either submit to it and you get used to it, or you're going to be miserable all the time. So I was totally addicted to it, and like you have to be, otherwise you can't function at that level, because you're on call 24/7, right? And so, I got on an airplane. I was going up to San Francisco from LA at 7:00 in the morning. And right when I got on the plane, I fell asleep. And as the plane landed, I woke up. And I'm like, holy cow, I'm in San Francisco already. Like, that's really weird. I couldn't sleep in my own bed at home, but I can sleep on a plane like a baby. I'm like, something is wrong with this, okay? Like
usually the opposite.
I was like 55 years old at the time. I'm going, okay, am I going to be doing this? Is this what my life is going to be until I'm like 80? Am I going to be chasing these kids going through Alligator Alley every spring training the next 25 years? Like, yeah, maybe I'm addicted to it, but I'm not so sure that's really great for my psyche going forward or my lifestyle, right? So I had during that time been talking to a number of companies who'd been trying to buy the agency. And one of the guys, one of the companies who was trying to buy us was a smaller company that was starting up, and a guy named Rob Ponger, who is now my business partner, he was the president of the company. He had just left IMG, and Rob was the CFO there. He had negotiated the whole deal with William Morris buying out IMG for $2.4 billion. And, during that time, I ended up not doing a deal with Rob, but we became really close friends for about maybe a year, before we ever discussed too much business. And him and I both kind of got together one day and said, why don't we roll up your agency, roll up some sports marketing firms, and make like a little mini IMG, or start, just doing stuff more in the sports space, right? And it was just a good time for me to do that. And so we did. We rolled up our agency. We rolled up 2 sports marketing firms. And the funny part is right after we closed on those sports marketing firms, it's like, okay, now I want to use my contacts to grow the marketing firms. And the very first company I talked to was Perfect Game, because, they were definitely the unicorn in their space. Yeah. But from small town USA, I mean, it was a mom and pop's run company, but they were killing it. I mean, there was no one that was really competing at the same level that they were. Yeah. And they had done a great job. So I took my sports marketing guys over there, and as we were talking, we were giving them a proposal. Jerry said to me, he goes, I don't think I want to spend the kind of money to have consultants come in here and build our company. He goes, but if you guys want to invest in the company, we'll be interested. So I was like, got it. Okay. So it took us about a year to negotiate that deal and to acquire the business. And I think we actually acquired it on July 20th of 2018. We kind of kept it quiet for a while. I didn't really want too many people to know that I had acquired Perfect Game. I'm sure the union wasn't too excited about that, and nor were a lot of agents that we had acquired it. But what they didn't really know is I was kind of slowly pulling myself out of the agent business, and I really wanted to go full time into more of the youth sports area. And interestingly enough, and we talked about, Perfect Game being an amazing brand now. I'll never forget when my partner Rob and I walked into our first meeting with all the major guys at Perfect Game, and I think we had about 20 of our top lieutenants when we held our first meeting, and they were all wearing T-shirts that on one side it had Perfect Game, a PG logo, and on the other side it had the Nike swoosh. And I remember looking at Rob and him looking at everybody and goes, listen, going forward, that Nike swoosh is not going to be showing up on any of our products. We can stand alone, this brand, and we're going to make this brand stand alone. So I don't want to see anybody else ever wear a Nike swoosh with a PG shirt. And at the time, Nike was a sponsor of ours. We were like, we've got a brand that's going to pop. So we just started doing things and building out the brand, and just doing things that other people really weren't doing in this space, And like the company was, and it was by far the biggest at the time in the youth space, but we were only utilizing 14 to the 18-year-old kids on our platform. That's all the showcases, all the tournaments and stuff like that was just 14 to 18. So we were like, there's a whole nother market where you go down market to 7 and 8-year-olds all the way up to 13. Because at the end of the day, what happens is that's a much bigger market of kids. Because most kids stop playing baseball.
That's right.
Sports,
yep.
When they hit 13 or 14, because they're they get interested in girls, or they realize they're not that good, they can't go forward. But what we want to do is make it so that not only were they better players, but we ended up with a pipeline of more kids coming through Perfect Game. And the reality is this, MLB does as good a job as they can do, right? But if you look at the demographics of MLB and the viewership, it's basically 55-year-old dudes, and that's it, okay, and up. And what MLB needs to do is they really need to get into that youthful space, because every one of these kids, from an organic standpoint and getting to the grassroots, every one of these kids ends up ultimately being a fan, right? So what we're trying to do is we're trying to make baseball cool again, get kids involved in it at a much higher level. I can tell you that when I first came in, we had 10,000 teams and about 200,000 kids playing. We were in 4 states. We now have 100,000 teams. We have between 1.5 and 2 million kids playing. And we're in 41 states, and I think we're in probably 10 or 12 countries now.
Wow.
We're going to be playing our first events this year in Japan. We did probably 3 or 4 events last year in the Dominican. I think we've got 10 or 12 scheduled this year. We did, I think, 11 events in Puerto Rico last year. We got more scheduled there. We did an event in Barcelona, one in the Czech Republic. We did one in Panama, Curacao. We did some in Canada, and Canada is a real growing area for us. We signed a deal with Australia. We're going to be Australia sends kids here. We're going to be sending kids there. So our business is really growing. You hit the nail right on the head. It's really on fire. I think we were doing probably $200,000 in just T-shirt sales in 2018, and we're now in all the Dick's stores, and we've got our leisure line, and our apparel's flying off the rack. It's been really a great run.
Well, it's funny you said that, and we're your demographic. Lou and I are your demographic because we got the kids that are getting to that age group that where you really want to be, the thing is, you see it now everywhere, and it's not only the thing that I love about it as somebody who's coming from a similar background to you as on the agent side is that it's not, and you mentioned the Nike thing. it's the gold standard now, and the kids all know it, and the kids are growing up with that now. So like the kids are, when you wear a Perfect Game hat, people are, and I see them around all the time now, which you did not see before you took over. But Rick, they, it's now people are gonna, when people see you and the kids think this, and it's all interconnected. That means you're a player, you're a ball player, you play at a high level. If you're playing Perfect Game, and that it's not just, hey, any publicity is good publicity. You said it at the very beginning. You said it's a unicorn. It was a unicorn, and the Ford family did a great job, with what they did. But what you guys have done in the last, 5, 6, 7 years, it's incredible how you've taken it just through the roof. And the fact that it's not only it's such a high level that everybody's looking at it that way. And I love that. I think that's amazing.
No, that is.
Yeah.
So Rick,
thanks. I mean, it's become an elite brand. It's kind of like a badge of honor. The kids, it's funny because we turned into somewhat of a product company. Also, we have almost an unfair advantage. We have kids that we put together, hundreds of kids in focus groups. We put the parents in focus groups. We ask them, what do you like? What kind of apparel do you like? What colors do you like? With bats, we just did a bat deal. We own a piece of a bat company now. What kind of bats do you like? And there's going to be more stuff like that rolling out. But we literally go to our customer base through these focus groups, and we get information from those kids and those parents, and we get their feedback, which is tremendously valuable, right? And then we produce basically the things they want us to produce.
And the connection is it's a natural. I mean, it's genius, really, but it's so obvious too at the same time. But you did it. But now you see it, you're like, oh my God, well, of course a bat company, I wasn't Perfect Game, partner up with a bat company or New Era, whatever, whoever your hat company is or whatever.
So Rick, so to that point, which is what's so fascinating about Perfect Game is like you marry the two, right? And it just to Chris's point, it seemed like a natural transition. It didn't seem forced. The kids love it. The gear is amazing. Where do you feel your space is in because you occupy multiple spaces? Where do you think your lane is? And do you see Major League Baseball as kind of a conduit to that? What are your feelings about that?
Well, it's so, okay. When we first started, I would say Perfect Game was just an event company, right? And Perfect Game, the core will always be that it's an event company. I mean, we're going into other sports. We've done a soft launch in softball. We're getting ready to take a much deeper dive into softball. Our platform actually conforms to any sport, really, because what we've thrived on is our scouting reports, the profiles on the kids and things like that, right? But there's been so many things that we've been able to actually do and go and grow, like from an apparel standpoint. We're actually into tech. We have a thing called the PG Tech Cage, where the kids go into a cage. They're there for 2 minutes. They take a few swings, and it basically tells them where they're strong, where they're weak, how fast the ball goes off the bat. It gives them a breakdown, and then it spits out a program for them how to get better and how to get stronger, right? So we give them those tools. There's another technology called Yacker Tech, and we just signed a deal with them. We're calling it the Yacker Tracker for Perfect Game, which will actually, kids will be able to download, and it'll give you all their spray charts and tell you, where they're best at hitting. Should they hit the ball right center? Are they good at hitting the ball to left field? How fast they run? It gives you all the data. And so we've got all these analytics on these kids, right? That we had analytics on all of them from the age of 14 to 18. We now have the analytics and the scouting reports from the time they're 8 to 18. So you can imagine, let's say you're a pro team, right? Or a college team. You can actually go into our service. You can see where all these kids have scouting reports at different ages, and you can track how good they've done and if they're getting better. And you know this, Chris, from being in the business, lots of guys kind of plateau out at young ages, right?
100%.
We can track and see how they're actually doing and the trajectory, right? So,
and it's such a valuable tool. I mean, that's a valuable tool that you're sitting on there that can be used by multiple people in multiple groups or whatever.
Very much so. So So we're a scouting platform. We have our own media now. We during the pandemic, we launched PG.TV, where we have hundreds of shows on every month. We do a college breakdown. We do breakdowns on all the top players, which we kind of look at it as like it's going to be the ESPN of youth sports, right? We do live streaming of games on our PG.TV.
Yeah, great.
And so we launched a thing called Diamondcast Plus. We had a product kind of similar. You know what the Game Changer app is?
Sure.
So we launched something similar to that, which, that's really a scoring app. But what we did a little different this last year was we just did a hard launch recently when we had our Houston 1000 series last week in Houston. But it's basically a scoring app. But what we've done is we've married live streaming to plus all the videos, so moms and dads can actually watch a live stream game wherever the kids are playing on our PG.TV. If they want to see it tape delayed, they can watch a tape delayed game. Or if they just want little, Rick Thurman's at bats, they can go right to that. And through AI, you don't have to watch the whole game. You can go right to my at bats, right?
That's great.
Or to where I'm pitched or any of my fielding stuff. So parents don't have to watch a whole game necessarily, right? But the other thing is it's really a good scouting tool because this, Chris, from being in the business, right? So let's say you're one of the major teams. We got the Canes, you got 5-star, you got the Wildcatters, Banditos, East Cubs, ET. There's hundreds of teams out there, right?
Sure.
And they've got all these good kids, and they're all the elite kids. So if you're a coach of a team, and let's say the Canes are playing 5-star next week, or the Wildcatters are playing the Banditos, right? If you're a coach, you're going to be like, okay, guys, I want my hitters to scout the pitchers, and I want my pitchers to scout the hitters for next week. So every one of these kids is getting on this platform, signing up to scout the kids. It's not just for moms and dads or grandparents to actually watch the games. This is a scouting tool that all these kids get to use as well.
And the possibilities are really endless when it comes to any of this stuff. I mean, there's so many different uses and things, and also just ways for PG to keep expanding. I mean, it's incredible. But you've been a visionary. I mean, honestly, it's incredible.
That's
listen, our PG.TV now. I think we're on Roku, Amazon,
yeah.
A few others, right? But I think we average like 3 million views a month on those. And then our profiles, which really was the secret sauce of the business when it started. We did run profiles on every kid in the country, the top 1,000 kids at their age group and their position. So let's say you're a 15-year-old shortstop. We got the top 1,000 guys. We ranked them. We put scouting reports on all those kids and all that. So in the last 3 years, our profiles alone, and this is where you go, okay, we're a media sponsorship company as well. Our profiles alone have had 1.5 billion, not million views. Okay.
It's incredible. And the app in the last few years, and I'm on there quite a bit actually still, it's incredible all the options that are on there that you can pull up right on your phone. I mean, it really is amazing.
Yeah, no, it's done really good. And, I've been really excited. I was able to kind of leverage a lot of the stuff that I did in my career representing athletes and my relationships. And, the one thing, and I don't know if you had this living in the Upper East Coast when you grew up, but we didn't have there was a lot of major league players that lived in LA, which is where I was from, but not a lot of them came out to high schools or whatever. When you're growing up, you just never had access to major league players. The only time I think I ever had any access to major league players when I was playing Little League or in high school was, if you go out to opening day at Little League or Pony League, and maybe they'd have Davey Lopes or Von Joshua or Billy Russell come out and give the opening day ceremony speech, right? That was like the closest thing you get. And so I tell this story often because it's true and it's kind of funny, but I've been able to use this to also help us with Perfect Game, which is, so when I went to Pepperdine University and I played there was one guy that used to come out every offseason when we would have winter ball, and there was a guy named Ed Farmer who probably played for 15 years.
Pitcher with the White Sox,
just
right?
died a couple of years ago, right?
Oh, is that right?
And he played for the Phillies at the time.
Okay.
And so he would come out and he'd run with all the college kids. He'd throw with us. But the one thing I can tell you that I used to do, and some of the other guys who were pitchers used to do, is poor guy, we felt bad for him. We used to corner him like in the dugout and pelt him with questions. I mean, we wanted to know what it took to become a major league player, like what it was like being one, how you got there, how much do you have to work, what do you have to do, who do you have to know, like what are the other players like, and we would pelt this guy with questions, right? So when I came in Perfect Game, I was like, I've got this whole cadre of ex-major league guys I've represented, guys that I still have amazing relationships with. I'm like, why don't I get some of these guys to be part of what we're doing? I'll hire some of them to work for us. Some of them I'll take in as investors. And some of them just want to be part of what we're doing, because the one thing we all know about ex-professional athletes, they love to bestow their knowledge on kids. They love it, right? So I started having guys like Tim Lincecum, Hunter Pence, Trevor Hoffman, Mo Vaughn, Ryan Klesko, Brian Fuentes, Todd Coffey, Sean Barry, Soriano, Francisco Cervelli, just to name like a ton of these guys. And we'd have them come to a lot of our main events. And sit down with the kids, talk to them, sit down with the coaches, talk to them. Because what I wanted to do is I wanted to separate us from the PBRs and the other guys that are in our space that don't have the ability to do this, right? The funny part about all this is like when we were kids, we were all historians of the game, right? You knew who Babe Ruth was, you knew who Mickey Mantle was, you knew who Stan Musial was, you knew who all these guys are. And some of these guys are those guys of kind of our era, right? And so the funny part is like we'll be sitting there and let's say Trevor Hoffman is talking to a kid and he's talking to him about throwing a changeup and how he does it. You'll get 50 kids surrounding and go, who is that? And go, Trevor Hoffman. And then they take their phones out and they Google and they go, oh my God, that's who that is?
He's only a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, right. But that's how you grab their attention because everything's so quick now. The kids, I don't think they're not much of a historian. They want to know things fast.
So Rick, I have a question about that. At what age do you think that these kids are kind of analyzing the information you're giving them, right? We talk about analytics. Where do you see that transition in the age where like, oh, they get it now. Like they know the spray charts. They know where to go, what to do. So
that's a great question. And that age keeps coming down. Like what's happening is the more these kids get exposed to stuff and the more competitive they are, and they're competitive. I mean, these kids, I got to tell you, like it's a whole different animal. I mean, I don't know. Like I go back to when I was 14 years old and I was always the biggest kid on my team. And we'll have like these 14-year-old tournaments. And listen, I'm pretty good. I'm 6'3", right? I look up at some of these kids. There's kids that are 14 years old that are 6'4", 230, right? And I'm like, I was probably a whole 5'11" or 6 feet, and weighed 140 or 50 pounds, dripping wet at 14. I couldn't have competed with these guys. These kids today they eat right, they work out all the time. Genetically, it's a different kid than it was 30, 40, 50 years ago. And so when you say, when did they get it? Look, I would say they were probably starting to get it, a few years ago at the age of 15, 16. But now I go, these kids are noticing. I was just with Hunter Pence's nephews in Houston. He's got these two nephews. He's got 3 nephews, but 2 of them are 13 and 14 years of age. The 14-year-old knows everything about baseball, is all into the stats, the analytics, everything you could possibly imagine, right? And the kid's 6'4", 6'5", weighs 180 pounds.
Oh my God.
Okay. Has size 16 shoes. Okay. And he throws 92 miles an hour at 14.
Oh my God.
Okay.
What's his name? What's his name again?
Striker Pence. I mean, like, this kid's gonna have every age to keep asking me to come out of retirement to represent. I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. But And then his younger brother is 13 years old, and that kid's 6'2", and weighs, and he's big. He's a moose. You know, he's not tall and skinny like the other one. This kid's like 220. Okay, and he can hit the ball like a country mile. So, you know,
which is why I think why you're seeing a lot of these major leaguers now coming up at 19 years age, right? Where in our time, you know, you ran the minor leagues for a few years. You got up when you were 22, 23. Now you're getting in at 19, and that's become a common thing now.
Yeah, well, I think they've pushed that. Like the kids have definitely. I mean, their skill sets refined. I mean, look, when we were kids, we played during the spring and summer, basically.
Exactly.
Right? And then you play other sports, and these kids now play year round. They're getting trained year round by top trainers. The parents pay all sorts of money to get them trained by ex-pro athletes or people that are in the fitness thing, and they're taking all sorts of good supplements, and they eat organic food. I mean, look, when I was a kid, we ate TV dinners, right? Or canned peaches and stuff like that. These kids today, even middle-class families, are eating from Whole Foods and eating organic stuff. So what these kids are putting in their body today is much better than what we obviously did when we were that age. And so you're creating a bunch of superhuman athletes, you know, and they're all better. Even I think even some of the kids that aren't that successful in perfect game events are probably a lot better than we were when we were the stars in the events
for sure
40 years ago.
For sure.
Is that why you are expanding to other sports within perfect game? Because you know, you kind of want them to have a different sport. You know, that's kind of like a theme now. You know, like, hey, I don't want you playing one sport year round. You know, try other things.
Yeah, I don't think that's why we're trying to expand into other sports. Like, to me, it doesn't really matter if kids want to play in other sports or they don't. Like, what I think is important is, and I always have believed this because I believe it, because I'll personalize it for myself. But I think that sports is a great education. You know, it teaches you camaraderie, teaches you teamwork, teaches you leadership skills, teaches you how to be competitive. A lot of things that you don't necessarily learn in school, right? Yeah. And so to me, sports is really important. Whatever sport you want to play. I don't really care what sport it is. We want to go into other sports because we feel like we have a tremendous platform and we've created a tremendous ecosystem to create more businesses from and to just continue to grow the youth space, whether it's baseball, you know, softball. We're talking about going into basketball as well. So it's just to me, it's growing the ecosystem, growing the business. It makes me feel. I wish I was 20 years younger and I'd have time to do all this because but we're doing as much as we can, and we've been putting all the money back into the business to keep growing it and keep growing the brand. And so far, it's done great. We've had, obviously, like anything else, you have hiccups here and there, but I mean, we went from literally when we acquired the company in 2018. I think we had 40 employees. I think we have almost 500 full-time employees now, and we have about 12,000 part-time employees.
That's awesome.
That's amazing. That's awesome.
Look, Rick, I think, for me, when we first met, I was working in the Mets front office. I looked up to you, and you're you're like King Midas. Whatever you touch turns to gold. You're great at what you do, and what you've done with Perfect Game, just like you did in the agent business, and you as you detailed before, to me, it's just, it's a testament to the type of person you are and the type of vision you have. And, I just have a lot of respect for you and for what you've accomplished in your career and what you continue to accomplish. And I, just from what you're telling me now, how this is going. So I really wanted to thank you for coming on and appreciate you taking the time to join us on the Agent and the Fan. And, just thanks so much for that and all the great stuff you're doing for all the kids, really. Thanks, Chris. It's great reconnecting with you. And Lou, it's great meeting you. Appreciate it. Likewise. Anytime you guys want me back, happy to be on it. We're gonna take you up on that. All right. We've got a lot we can talk about. Rick, thank you very much. Lou, we'll see everybody soon. All right, guys.
Take care, guys.
Okay.
Bye.